we're going to get some insight on tomorrow's game. Get ready and get some. Well, of course, too, if you're watching us live, you can watch and see some of the things that Jerry and Aria have to say. But you can also come out down and see us. We're going to be here for a little while as they finish up the show. But we got to get started and see what they have to say down at the sports desk. Taking it to Aria.
All right, thank you, Alex. I don't know if this mic's working, but I'll speak up.
Okay.
It's a big game weekend here in Florida State on Georgia Tech. State 4-3 on the year. Oh, two mics work beautifully. That's what we're talking about. And Jackets 3-4 coming in, and so it's a big weekend for FSU trying to get back, having a bye week. Last week, of course, 3 straight losses for the Noles. Again, just trying to get things going. That's Jerry Cutts. I'm Mario Masudi. Thanks for joining us here on YouTube. We're in Tally and Finn College Town. Drew Green going to perform a little bit later on, 8 o'clock down by Batso and Township. So come on out. Come join us. It should be a beautiful atmosphere tomorrow as well. Weather should be pretty good, Jerry. And Florida State, big weekend for them to try and bounce back.
Big weekend.
He's both.
There we go. We're going to brother-in-law this. Yeah. Yeah, Pat Burnham just reminded me I'm a double fister, so there you go. At any rate, Aria, it is a big weekend. You just got done doing a women's soccer game against Virginia Tech, 4-1 win. A lot coming up with women's soccer. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Give me both mics again. Yeah. Here we go, double fisting back coming your way. 4-1 from Florida State last night. Virginia Tech. Here for the defending national champs. All right. They now have a first-round bye in the ACC tournament, so they get a direct spot in the ACC semifinals later on this week, and so they are the co-ACC champions as well, tying with North Carolina this season. And why that was big was Florida State was looking to try and also host the NCAAs, in a good spot right now to be able to at least host the first 2 or 3 rounds, and so that's big when you look at what Brian Penske has done stepping in for Mark Krikorian. A lot of questions on if Brian Penske could do what Mark Krikorian did, arguably the greatest college coach in the game at the time that he left. And Penske's coming in and been admirable, right? You're a top 5 team. You got a lot of players returning. And so Florida State, another good shot to try and make a run at an ACC title and a national title, maybe go back-to-back this season. So absolutely, you should. Fantastic team that represents the school well. But as far as football goes, Jerry, this is going to be an important one for Mike Norvell, because I think after those 3 games, in which you competed well, you played pretty well. I do think there's frustration in the way that you couldn't finish some of those games. This is a chance to try and put a good taste back in the mouth, and that back half of that schedule, which we both think FSU's got a shot to maybe make some noise and get a pretty decent record to end the season.
Yeah. It's like a double ice cream cone. At any rate, I wrote a column this week about, the upcoming 4 opponents, and the reality is it's not about the opponents; it's about Florida State. It's how does Florida State perform, and can they play? Do they allow themselves to play down to their competition, or do they set the standard that Mike Norvell has been expecting and demanding throughout the year? And what's weird to me is I think each of us, the people listening, and that cost us the game. I mean, you play very well throughout the game, and then all something bad happens, and it sort of mounts on it. I think about this game against Georgia Tech, I think we're looking for a consistency of effort and execution. I mean, that to me is what this game is about. And, the rest of it is kind of a moot point to me.
Well, I think, too, when you look at the NC State game specifically, that was tough because that's a team that you felt like you had down on the ropes. Second half, quarterback goes out of the game, and you thought, one good drive ends this for Florida State. So that's the one that got away. The other 2, I think, you live with it. Wake Forest made the plays that they had to. I think most people accepted that Wake was ready a little bit more for that moment. Clemson, a lot of mixed reviews on Clemson. Middle of the game, Tigers dominate. Florida State fights back. It's not nothing. I think you have to count it for something, and it shows that the culture's in a good spot. But we were realistic, I think, about what Florida State could do in the first 7. I think if you ask most Nole fans, after 7 games, 4-3 would have been acceptable. Now, you wanted 5-2 because of the way it played out. But the second half of this who started the season at head coach, might be without Jeff Sims at quarterback, is a program that's struggled mightily the last few seasons anyway. You got to get back on track. And you look at some other ones down the road, and Miami, very beatable. Yes, it's a rivalry game, but that's a Hurricane team that, Mike Norvell needs to beat a first-year head coach that looks to be having a plethora of problems right now in Coral Gables. Florida looks to be having the same kind of problems with Billy Napier, kind of struggling as well. Obviously, that game different year in and year out because really game 12 of the season, it's a matter of who's healthy, right, when you play the Gators. It doesn't matter always what the talent on the field is. It's really about who's still left banging and bruising. And then Louisiana's got to be an automatic win. And then Syracuse is the one I think we can reassess, the quality of the team on the road at Cuse. So 4-1 is staring you in the face. That's respectable. 5-0 is possible. And I think 3-2 has to happen.
As I study Georgia Tech, I see a team that is struggling offensively. They're probably better defensively right now than they are offensively. But even at that, they're ranked. We've played 5 defenses better than the one that we're going to play tomorrow, statistically. Now, I always put a caveat when we play Georgia Tech because Georgia Tech, even when we're superior, has a way of making it difficult on us. We've had some heartbreaks at Georgia Tech, and we all remember the '92 game, and that was the breakout of the shotgun offense. But that game went right down to the wire, and we were interviewing Mark Richt about it the other day, and he said, "Thank God there was no instant replay back then, because he wasn't sure that Kez got into the end zone before he fumbled." And so Georgia Tech just takes us to the wire. And in my humble opinion, I think it's because other than Miami and Clemson, Georgia Tech is the team that recruits really players similar to the ones we recruit. I mean, they have team speed. They've got athleticism. You don't just beat them by out athleting them or out being faster than them. I mean, you actually, they can run with you. They have good team speed. And I think that's part of the reason that we've struggled with them over the years.
Is it working back? Maybe this one? Nope. Double fisting is the way to go, as we've been well accustomed to. Yeah, I think, too, when you look at Georgia Tech years past, the triple option is something that came to mind right under Paul Johnson. And that was such a unique for you every season because how do you prepare for a kind of gimmick offense like that in the middle of preparing for spreads, these I formations and things like that? So now, obviously, Jeff Collins, who has been, let go since then, it's, Brent. They've moved back to a aesthetical type of play where it's a little more what you're used to seeing for Florida State. But Georgia Tech, they beat Florida State, if you remember, on Norvell's debut here in COVID year. And so the Noles have to be able to take care of the Yellow Jackets, I think, tomorrow. Should be a big day, too, though. Booster lots, I heard, are opening at 8 o'clock.
It's a big day for tailgating and experience. I mean, tomorrow should be great. The people will be lining up at 6 a.m. to get to their favorite spot in the tailgate line. So we should a very good crowd tomorrow, I think. I think it'll be a home field advantage for certain. Coming into this game, one of the big question marks is Jeff Sims, and will he play? And as we all know, he had committed to Florida State under Willie Taggart, and then didn't fit what Mike was looking for in a quarterback. There was a decommitment there, and Sims has kind of had Florida State circled on the schedule every year. He got us 2 years ago. Tomorrow will be a big day. His quarterback coach is none other than Chris Winkie, and Bob had a good story with Chris about his experiences and his growth as a coach, largely shaped by Bobby Bowden and Mark Richt early. And so there's a lot of good, fun stories going on in this game, and it's an exciting opportunity. What's sad to me, I'm a happy guy, but what's a little sad to me is after tomorrow, we've only got 2 home games left. We got Louisiana, and then we've got Florida, and then this football season's over. We got a bowl game. I think we'll have a bowl game, but Doak Campbell Stadium will go dark after 2 games, and so if you haven't gotten a chance to come here and got no mic. Okay, here we go. We're back. Thank you, Joel. So to repeat what I said, if you haven't gotten a chance to come to Doak this year, be sure to plan on it for the Louisiana game or the Florida game. This is a fun team to watch, and I think this team has a chance to put a good number up on the season this year.
Joel put up the one, maybe 2. I think 2 is still the way to go here, Joel. I think we're still on team 2. That's okay. Look, you wrote a column that I really liked earlier this week about, Florida State's got to be able to kind of look themselves in the mirror and start playing football better as a unit, right? It's not as much about the opponent that you're playing, because these 5 games are going to show you all the things that you've been doing in the offseason, all the things that you've been doing building up the infrastructure. If it's strong, these are the types of games that you have to start winning. Can you dive us a little bit deeper into your column and things that you want fans to know about where Florida State's trying to head in the final 5 games?
Well, the big thing to me is don't beat yourself. And in that story I did, I talked to Mickey Andrews, and that was something that was instilled with him from Bear Bryant. Is winning's hard enough. Don't make it any harder than it needs to be. And I think we've seen that sometimes from Florida State. Not so much this year as in the previous years. I think Mike has done a good job of getting a more consistent product. But it's a 60-minute game, and in the games we lost, you had to play 60 minutes. I think we played really about 59 against against Clemson. And if you look at the statistics of that game, that Clemson game, we dominated them in every category, just about. First downs, it was like 26 or 28 to 16. In total offense, we had them by 100 yards. And somehow or another, they still, and good teams do that. They find a way to win. And, they beat us with a great play on defense where they caused the fumble by Jordan. They beat us on a great kickoff team play by a 5-star running back. I think that we're going to see play in the NFL. The guy who created the sack on Jordan was a 5-star player. And, let's face it, they've had a lot of success at Clemson. Their recruiting classes have been better than ours. And, when it comes, and listen, college football today has become a spread game, where it comes down to one-on-one battles, and you got to win those one-on-one battles. It's not like the old days where you had gang tackling. It's all open field, one-on-one tackling. You got jump balls. You have a fade route where your receivers got to go get the ball. It really comes down to that. And so we didn't win some of those battles. Now, as we get into Georgia Tech and some of the other teams we're going to play this year, I'd say I don't think there's that big of a talent spread between Florida State and the remaining teams on our schedule, but it's still going to come down to execution. And that was the point of my column, is you got to look yourself in the mirror, got to execute when your number's called.
I think without a doubt, when fans look at the season, you got to remember that Florida State's still building to where they want to get. And I think hot start was huge. It helped recruiting, obviously, but I think it also might have put expectations to another level, in which it was not saying Florida State's not capable of it. I just think, realistically speaking, going from 5-7 to a 10-2 team or a 9-3 team was maybe asking for a little bit, right? And right now you have a chance at 8-4 with a reasonable 4-1 in your final 5. 5-0's there, right? I mean, a lot would have to go your way, but that's saying 5-0 is available. But to your point, you got to start playing well together, and it comes down to quarterback. Offensive line's battled some injuries. Receivers have battled drops from time to time. It's going to come together at one point, and if you can get healthy too, I think that makes a big difference. Before we let you go and we bring on Pat to break down Georgia Tech just a little bit deeper, I want 3 from you that you're watching for tomorrow, and give me a score prediction.
I'm looking for consistency of effort in terms of chasing the football. I mean, you want to see a defense that gets after the quarterback. And, if we get after their quarterback, we'll create turnovers. And that's the key. This team has not been able to create as many turnovers in the last 3 games as they did in the 4 they won. And so, it starts with your defensive front, get after the quarterback. Secondly, as I said, is the effort on defense, because that's where turnovers happen. And I think we'll see that. I think the third thing I want to see, and I want the fans to watch for this, I think the energy level changes when Lovett and Verse are in the huddle. They're your leaders, and that's something I'm going to look for is what that energy level on defense looks like when they're in the game. Let's go back to the 3 games we lost. We lost them without Lovett. We lost them mostly without Verse, and some without Cooper, and some of those games without all 3. So Bobby Bowden used to say, when you asked him to define luck, he immediately said injuries. If you get injuries at key positions, that's bad luck. And when you look at our 93 national championship team, our 99 national championship team, and our 2013 national championship team, they started that year and finished that year with the exact same offensive line. We didn't have a merry-go-round of offensive linemen coming in and out. And, I'm speaking for Mark Salva here probably, but that's the key to consistency on offense, is when you have the continuity that gets developed with offensive linemen. And we just haven't had that luxury in years. Now, we're a much better offensive line than we were, but I promise you we'd be even better if some of our offensive linemen that, we lost early in the year, if they were now playing their 8th game together. And, some people say, well, that's an excuse. And I hear that. But that's where depth, that's where recruiting comes into play. When you go from your first string right tackle to your second string right tackle, there shouldn't ought to be a drop off. And Clemson doesn't have a drop off because they've recruited depth. And that's part of this growth that we're experiencing right now. So, that's that to me is the big thing tomorrow. Consistency, effort, create some big plays on defense.
All right, well, Jerry, thank you very much. Great publisher of our site, and should be a fun one tomorrow. Pat, I think breaking down Georgia Tech a little bit more, good idea here, just so the fans understand what the Noles are facing. It's a Georgia Tech team, Jerry and I touched on a little bit, that has struggled this season. The program got to a point where they felt like they needed to make a move from Jeff Collins and get to Brent Key. You made a note in your previews this week that they're playing better under Brent Key, and they've started to have a sense of belief and maybe a sense of refreshment within that program, at least for this season, to try and get maximum effort out of some of those kids.
Well, first of all, when I'm double-fisted normally, it's with 2 drinks in my hand. So the 2 microphone things is totally new to me, and I'm not quite sure how to do it. But to your point, Aria, they are 2-1 under Brent Key. Sometimes in any college football program, you need a new voice, and it was obvious that Georgia Tech needed a new voice. Now, offensively, they struggle. It doesn't matter whether they have Jeff Sims in the game or not. They are one of the worst offenses statistically in the ACC and in college football. They only have 150 starts across their offensive line. No one's older than a redshirt sophomore. It should be a distinct advantage for Florida State's defense on Saturday against Georgia Tech's offense. And I think what you'll see them do, whether it's Jeff Sims or one of the 2 young quarterbacks that has filled in there, actually practiced a true freshman quarterback, Zach Pinson, this weekend, a 4-star recruit, for whatever that's worth. We talk about stars a lot. Those disappear when you get to college. But bottom line is, if you're Florida State and you're Adam Fuller, you're going to load the box and or bring pressure early and often. If Jeff Sims is hurt, you want to test that foot out, see if he can be mobile and make plays in the run game. And if they play one of the younger 2 kids, you want to get them so flustered and upset that they don't know whether they're coming or going. So if I'm Adam Fuller and that defensive staff, I'm loading the box. I'm bringing pressure from the corners. I'm bringing pressure from the safeties. And I'm going to go ahead and make all 3 of those quarterbacks, whoever plays, very uncomfortable. That offensive line does not play with a lot of confidence. They give up a ton of sacks, a ton of pressures. And so Florida State should have a distinct advantage on defense lined up against Georgia Tech's offense, and they should be able – should be a team that they dominate. They do not throw the ball well, about 1,100 yards passing, not very productive in the run game, although you will recognize the running back. It's Hassan Hall, who played at Louisville. He is a good back. He's also their kick returner. And they have a good receiver named Nate McCullum, who leads the team with 34 catches, which is twice more than anybody else on the team. So you kind of know who your playmakers are on the Georgia Tech offense. It's 2 guys. It's been Jeff Sims, Nate McCullum, and to a lesser extent, Hassan Hall. Now, on the other side of the ball, Georgia Tech has had some bad. Statistically, they don't look very good on defense. But if you look at their what's up, fella? If you look at their defense, they make a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. Now, they've struggled against teams that are consistent in running the ball. And what I mean by that is they got beat up by Ole Miss. Ole Miss ran the ball on them 62 times. They got beat up by UCF. UCF ran the ball 50 times. Now, the last 3 games, they've given up 156 yards or less against the run. So I think the key for Florida State is to play complementary football. For Florida State, they need to rediscover those big plays in the passing game, right? Get an early lead, get 10, 14-point lead, because I don't think if Florida State plays up to its capabilities on defense, Georgia Tech can come back and hang with them and play catch-up football. So, I think it's a very simple game plan for Mike. Listen, a win is huge. We talk about the last 5 games, but when you're on a 3-game losing streak, this game is the most important game they're going to play, and they cannot afford to get caught looking ahead to Miami and or Syracuse. And yes, Miami is having some issues right now, but when you're in a 3-game losing streak, you need to focus on you, and you need to focus on the opponent at hand, and that's where their focus needs to be. And listen, they fought hard, but you are in a 3-game losing streak. You got to get the positive momentum turned back for a lot of reasons. A, to get to that bowl game you're talking about. B, we've talked about the importance of recruiting. You've got some kids here. One kid on an official visit, and you want to do well in front of him. But yeah, listen, I think it's a game that Florida State should win. I'm not sure that I agree with the 24-point spread. I like the 13.5-point spread a little bit more, but we're not betting. So, and I would love to be wrong on that. But yes, they've got one of the best linebackers in all of college football. And Ely, he's 17th in the nation in tackles. They're one of the better run defenses as far as making plays behind the line of scrimmage. They are 13th in the nation in TFL. So, and again, they have improved the last 3 games defensively. So Florida State cannot take this defense lightly. Florida State's offense cannot. That we need to find more consistency in the receiving game. You mentioned the drops, and that's something that Florida State needs to improve on. They need to come out and look like they're fresh. They should be. They've been off for almost 14 days. They only practiced twice during the open week. So you should have fresh legs and guys that are ready to get after
it. Hear it for Pat. They must have loved the dialogue there. That was much of a monologue, actually, more than anything. I think I meant to say diatribe. You went on a little bit of an essay there. That was nice, though. That's as in-depth of a preview. I don't even know what else to follow up with other than it looks like, Georgia Tech's going to be a team that comes in and defensively, that's going to be their key. Can they force Fields for an offense that struggled? Again, if FSU doesn't turn the ball over, you feel pretty good about where this game's going and maybe even the margin of victory that FSU can have in this one. Would you agree with me that a dominant win is something that locker room needs right now, is to be able to feel good about themselves again and manhandling an opponent?
Yeah, when you've lost the game,
Italian weekend in Tallahassee. Always is this time of year. Florida State looking to move to 5-3 to get back in the good graces, and then we turn our page to the Miami Hurricanes. A lot of fun next weekend. Thank you guys so much for joining us here tonight. Those of you on YouTube, it's been a lot of fun. Jerry Cutts, Bob Ferrante, our great managing editor, Pat Burnham, Mario Masudi, and we'll talk to you soon as we sign off from the Osceola pregame show.
I feel like a preacher. I've been sweating.
You got to figure it out, man. Can you open it?